Hey everyone, I'm Dan Sege.
And I'm Rebecca Schwartz, both from Hydro Ottawa.
And we'll be hosting the ThinkEnergy podcast. So, are you looking to better understand the fast-changing world of energy? Every 2 weeks, Rebecca and I will be taking you on a tour and discuss some of the coolest trends, emerging technologies, and latest innovations within the energy sector.
We'll be engaging in great conversations with game changers, thought leaders, and industry leaders who welcome the opportunity to share their expertise and views with you, our listeners.
So stay tuned as we explore some traditional and some quirky facets of this industry.
This is the ThinkEnergy podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome back. This is the ThinkEnergy podcast, and this episode is titled The Wonder Woman of Powerline Technicians. Folks, I'm Dan Sege.
And I'm Rebecca Schwartz. Hey Dan, did you know that there are still industries that use gendered job titles and the default is always men? I'm thinking jobs like fireman, policeman, mailman.
Batman, Iron Man, Superman?
Kind of like that, but not exactly. I'm also thinking about our own industry and how within the energy sector, lineman is still very commonly used.
You're absolutely right, Rebecca. I think these gendered job titles are an artifact from a bygone era when women were forbidden to work and later had very limited career options. The jobs you mentioned and many more were deemed men's work, and so their title reflected that.
Right. And because it's taken so long for women to achieve any sort of equality in the workforce, and side note, we still have a very long way to go, a lot of these gender biases and male-dominated fields still very much exist. And as a woman, I can say that it's kind of frustrating.
I know it's overly simplistic, but it makes you wonder if these gender-biased job titles dissuaded lots of women from considering these careers.
Probably. And I think the energy sector remains one of the least gendered diverse industries, with women making up only 22% of workers. And in the renewable energy space, it's just slightly better with 32%, but most of these are admin positions.
Guess you're right. We do have a long way to go. Let's move on to today's big question. In Canada, women represent approximately 1 to 2% of active powerline technicians working in the electricity industry. What are the barriers these women face, and what improvements can be made for future generations of women?
Well, I'm excited about our guest today, Dan. Lana Norton is the executive director and founder at Women of Powerline Technicians, a not-for-profit whose mission is to have women as equal participants in trade and technical roles in the energy sector. With a decade of field experience in Canada's electricity sector, she has held progressive roles in distribution operations. Now, she's a colleague of ours here at Hydro Ottawa as the Supervisor of Field Metering Services. Welcome, Lana. Maybe you can start by telling our listeners a bit about what drew you to the Powerline Technician program.
So thank you very much, Rebecca and Dan, for having me. Yeah, so I first attended a Powerline Technician program just over 10 years ago. The journey that led me to pursuing a career in the trades and as a Powerline Technician was that it happened unexpectedly that I ended up in the trades. And what kind of prompted that was I was a young mom. And so I became a mom at 20. And by the time I was 21, I was a single mom. And in the next 2 years, I spent my time getting established and creating a life for my daughter and I. And I was really on the path of financial stability and what was that going to look like in creating a life for her and for I. So to me, that was a career in the trades. And so, I spent 2 years looking all over the province for, an opportunity within the Powerline Technician. And I had one employer reach out to me and let me know of a new school in Sudbury that was now offering a 2-year college diploma in Powerline Technician. And from there, employers were hiring out of that program because it would give apprentices a jump start on on their apprenticeship and the knowledge and what we kind of brought into the trade.
I understand you were the second woman to graduate from the Powerline Tech program back in 2010 at the first college in Ontario to offer the training. What was that experience like?
I worked for it. It was few people that have been like you, that have come before you and gone through that. You really do show up every day and you're showing other people that you can do it. And at the same time, you're also building that skill and that resiliency within yourself. I was very fortunate, and I met a lot of amazing people along the way when I was up in the Powerline program. Something that comes to mind is I mentioned that I was a mom, and so my daughter had relocated to attend school with me. And in the time that I was up there, if she was sick or if the daycare was closed, there were definitely instances where I had to bring her to class with me to write a test. And so, me being the only woman there, only parent, in a group of 24 young men, they were like a bunch of brothers. And, if I was still writing my test and they had finished, my daughter, who was 3 at the time, they would watch over her so I could finish my test. So there was definitely a lot of really great things that came out of that program.
Lana, can you tell us more about the roles you've had and what you love most about your job?
Sure. So I was hired as an apprentice Powerline technician. And from there, I took on a role as a field operator. And as a field operator, I worked as an agent assistant. So we worked in a 24-hour, 7 days a week capacity. We were on rotating shifts. And, what I really enjoyed was, so as an apprentice Powerline technician, you got a view of the city, one job, one specific geographical area at a time. You're working on building this pole line. And when I took on the role as a field operator, I became citywide, meaning that there were like an outage that happened in the east end of the city. I was going there, and I was just as comfortable in the east operating equipment as I was in the west. And so I really enjoyed the overall view of the grid and how the power moves throughout the city. And from there, I took on a field technician role. And so as the field technician, I was a member of distribution engineering and asset management. And so what we did there was we did the overall planning and preparing the work to hand over to the crews to execute in the field. So there were a lot of large pole lines that we had to get built, and I was in charge of preparing that for the crew. In my current role, I'm the supervisor of metering field services, and I oversee a team of meter technicians. And so with that, every morning I'm preparing the team for the day's jobs and reviewing jobs and timelines and the resources available to complete the work. My favorite part of the day is meeting with my team in the morning, and I get to hear their challenges and what they see in the field, and then how we can go ahead and problem solve that.
Maybe you could tell us about your nonprofit organization, Women of Powerline Technicians, and what motivated you to create it. And lastly, what are some of the benefits of joining your organization?
So Women of Powerline Technicians was first established in 2016, and we are the voice from the field committed to increasing women in trade and technical roles in Canada's electricity sector and beyond. As a national not-for-profit, our mission is to have women as equal participants in the trade and the technical roles in the electricity sector. So our approach consists of 2 streams. We advise leaders through a gender equity lens on how to advance their diversity and inclusion goals. And Women of PLT also offers programming. Our programming is open to men and women with a focus of supporting women in early, mid, and late careers in the trade and the technical roles. And our programming includes mentoring, 24/7 peer group, career postings, networking events. We have a student bursary, and the Illuminate blog. What motivated me to create Women of PLT was, as you mentioned earlier, Jan, when I first came through the program at Cambrian, I was the second woman to do so. And up until that point in early 2010, I'd heard rumors that there are other women doing this job in the province, but I couldn't specifically find them and connect with them. And so after I graduated, many of the men that I made friends with in the program, as they went on and we all became employed in the province, they would reach back out to me to say, Lana, like, I saw another woman working today. And so it was over that time that I was able to, connect with those women and be able to, like tie in the network. And it's the overall ability knowing that you might be alone where you are geographically every day because there are so few of us. But at the end of the night, you get to go home, you can log on online, and you can connect with those women. That was really the motivation, because we're not alone in this.
With skilled trade shortages across Canada, what would you tell women considering a career in this line of work? What advice would you give them, Lana?
And what do you wish someone might have told you when you first started?
Women are able to do this. And when we look broadly, and especially in the recovery of the pandemic, we hear, it's out there that women are overrepresented in sectors that have been most vulnerable during recessions and during the coronavirus, right? So we see that women are overrepresented in service and hospitality and tourism. And these have all been slower to recover. When you put that in context, and you will also consider beginning of this month on October 1st, there was a 10-cent an hour increase to the rate of minimum wage, bringing it up to $14.35. And you pair that with the Ontario government has had such a push on right now to support people in coming out of the pandemic and upskilling and being able to train and take on jobs within the skilled trades, because there is a labor shortage there. But I would say that for women, that this is the time that you do need to plan your life backwards sometimes. And that while it may not have been, initially, most people, I would say, don't wake up in the morning thinking that the skilled trades are absolutely for me. But at any point during your life, you're able to reevaluate that and where you want to be. And having, a career in the trades provides that stability, that lifestyle that may be what you're seeking.
Now, moving on, why do you think women are underrepresented in the energy sector, Lana?
I think that the energy sector has been doing a great job in communicating ours and their value to customers. And through the different medium and media platforms, we've been able to demonstrate that women are here and that we're successful. As an industry, the expectations of our customers, I feel, have shifted over time, right? And like we see that here today with the podcast as well, that our customers are now expecting something different of energy companies. They're expecting communications on the touch points of their lives. Historically, that line of communication hasn't always been open and available to our customers. And one of the effects of not having that open in communication is that the customers don't necessarily see who's here, right? Who's here and who's keeping the light on, and on the different jobs that are currently available within, a local distribution company. So that visibility always hasn't been there, but it's through, podcasts and that we're able to create that new line of vision into what it is we do, right? So it really speaks to creating visibility for the sector. And so I would also say that there's always been a push to have women, join the workforce, right? And I think over time that what people believed was that women were just going to start trickling in, and that the numbers would just continue to grow and grow and grow over time. And we just haven't seen that to the effect that I think everybody thought that we would. And so creating further visibility for what it is we do really helps, but it also speaks to some of the historical underrepresentation, meaning that, the careers have been harder to find. And so if you didn't necessarily have a parent working within the energy sector, you maybe yourself, you weren't sure how to get that started.
Now, I just learned from a recent interview you gave that in Canada, only 1% to 2% of powerline technicians are women. How can we close the gap in advancing the role of women in this sector?
We're still sitting at the 1% to 2% as powerline technicians. And so how we can work and advance that number, quicken the pace of change. We've seen some brilliant initiatives and programs happen as of lately. So one of the ones I'll speak about is Algonquin College. They put together a program called We Saved You a Seat. And what that program does is it saves 30% of the seats for women in the top 5 STEM programs. Powerline technician being one of them. And so, the research is there on the tipping point, at which point, a class balance shifts, and that, you no longer feel like you're one of a few, but the conversation, the dynamics in the class start to shift. So 30% really starts mixing the gender balance. So we're seeing progressive movements and programs like that come forward. I also think that we need to set goals and that we need to target the talent. Without setting a goal, it becomes very difficult to achieve. And we need to be intentional about who we're targeting and, the talent that we want to come work for us. It's also time that we change the conversation. Since the 80s, the conversation has been like more women in skilled trades. We're looking for more women in skilled trades. But the conversation I believe that, would be valuable in having is start explaining to the talent, to the people that we want to come work for us, what it is we exactly do. Like that we are building energy systems to power our future. We're advancing smart grid technology for net zero communities, and we're investing in energy storage. I think that would be the thing that, the new talent, like they want to connect with, right? And then we're finding people that align with the goals that we're looking to achieve.
So, as the chair of the Program Advisory Committee for the Electrical Engineering and the Powerline Technician Program for Algonquin College, what are you learning from new students and graduates?
So the new students are informed and they're prepared, and they have access to more data, more podcasts, more blogs, and more social media that we've ever seen before. And with that comes a lot of insight to how things are evolving and changing in the trade and what those expectations are. And as leaders, we need to remain mindful of the knowledge that they're able to bring to the job. When we look at the electricity sector, there's been such an emphasis placed on tradition, right? Like we are very traditional in how we do things. And for the last 120 years, we've always set poles and the wires, and that's our business. And this new generation, they have a lot of insight and ideas how to transform things, and being able to take that information and keep them engaged is something that I'm continually learning from that program.
In your opinion, how should employers in the energy sector be attracting, recruiting, and retaining the next generation of women in trades?
Basically, Dan is asking, what do women want?
If we're looking at what women want, they're looking for equal pay, equal leadership, and equal opportunities. And the electricity sector does a good job of this. Like when we look at equal pay, for example, that's a given based on the fact that we have a union in here. And whether all level 1 apprentices are paid the same, all level 2 apprentices are paid the same, we have that. And it may not be clear to somebody on the outside looking in, But that is something that is already there and given when you come to the table. So I think we're partway there. And when we look at equal leadership, although women are underrepresented within the electricity sector, the equal opportunities are here, right? That women are given, being given a chance to work their way into leadership, to take on different roles. And so in time, we will see that leadership come, but, like equal leadership. But for now, the pay and the opportunities are here, and in inviting more women to, come into an organization and join that just means that there's more of us among the ranks in order to move into leadership positions.
As we talk about inclusivity and making sure that everyone belongs at work, can you speak to some of the biggest challenges for women? It is clearly still a male-dominated field, but is that changing, and is it fast enough?
For people living at the forefront of change, and I'm speaking about the women, sometimes it can feel like it's simply just not fast enough. And then there are some that, when reflecting on the history of providing an electrical service over the last 120 years, when all of the gains in diversity has meant hiring a handful of women in the last decade, they can simply feel like the transition is too fast. But when we look at our energy systems and climate change, the reality is that it's simply not fast enough. It's a conversation about being better than we are today, and better includes diverse voices and perspectives.
What excites you about the energy field of the future? What would you like to see, or maybe even lead?
We exist in a place where power has become a necessity, and time without it is measured in minutes. And this just speaks to the astounding reliability of our electrical systems and the people who we are accountable to, our customers. As we look to the future, I'm really excited by distributed energy resources and what they bring to our grid capabilities, and the ways that we will continue to evolve to meet our customer expectations. In the future, I would like to contribute in a larger way to the multilateral grid sustainability and energy policy. For now, though, I'm enjoying my time with the metering team.
All right, Lana, how about we close off with some rapid fire questions?
I'm ready.
What is your favorite word?
Illuminate.
What is one thing that you can't live without?
My family.
What is something that challenges you?
Time.
If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
That I was good at telling jokes.
And if you could turn back time to talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you tell her?
That you're going to enjoy the person that you become, and you're going to be fiercely independent.
All right, Lana, lastly, what do you currently find the most interesting in your sector?
The willpower of others in recognizing the need for change to transform our electricity sector to meet future climate targets and energy needs.
Well, Lana, we've reached the end of another episode of the ThinkEnergy podcast. Thank you very much for joining us today. I hope you had a lot of fun.
I did. Thank you very much for having me.
We've reached the end of another episode of the ThinkEnergy podcast. Again, thank you for joining us today. And Rebecca, I hope you had a lot of fun.
I did. Thanks for having me.
Rebecca and I will be co-hosting going forward in 2021. Thanks for joining us. See you, folks.